the International Hotel in Killarney, which was in debt to the tune of £7,000. In October 1919, Australian Army chaplain Captain Reverend Father Thomas O'Donnell enters the dining room of the hotel and orders tea, bread and butter. At his table he is joined by a Northern Unionist, a Mr. Marsh. Mr. Marsh is partially deaf. What transpired in their conversation was to have huge diplomatic and political fallout and tested British-Australian relationships to the limit. It was alleged that in the course of their conversation, the Australian was heard to say,
"We Australians fought for the independence and the right to self-government for all small nations, which is being denied to the oldest and finest country in the world by a few satellites of King George who are lining their own pockets at the expense of the working class and whose hands are red with the blood of Irish patriots.
What are you talking about?
King George and the royal family are of no use to this country or of any other country. I had hopes that the railway strike was the commencement of a revolution in England. And the king, fearing the same, commanded Lloyd George to have it quashed with a firm hand. Sympathy with Sinn Féin is growing in Australia, and I shall do what little I can to advance its cause. Australian soldiers that have been visiting Ireland over the last 2 years are leaving with a rather unfavourable impression of their dear old country. Under the present government, the only industry that I can see which flourishes in Ireland are the prisons, choked full of Irish patriots."
There you go. Lieutenant Samuel Chambers, who is now in the dining room and sharing a table with a Mr. Waddell, an English commercial traveller, approaches the Australian and asks that he lowers the volume of his conversation as he is speaking treason. The reply that he was supposed to have got was, "It's none of your damn business." The result of it all is for O'Donnell to be arrested, charged with speaking sedition and taken to London for court-martial. Georgina Bennett is brought to London to testify in defence of Father O'Donnell. Mr. Patrick Lynch took Georgina Bennett through her witness statement.
Miss Bennett,
Yes,
could you give us an account of your witness statement, please?
indeed. Lieutenant Chambers approached me in my office at the hotel on Saturday morning.
Continue.
I told him that Captain O'Donnell had left. He said to me, "It's a good thing that he has, or he will be cold before night."
Cold before night? I see.
"What do you mean by that?" I asked him.
Indeed. What indeed?
He told me that he would have him arrested for talking sedition in the hotel the previous evening. He would not dare meddle with my priests, I told him. There's no priest, the lieutenant said. But when I told him that Father O'Donnell had said Mass the 2 mornings he stayed in the hotel, he got quite a drop.
Sure.
I'll have him arrested then for wearing a captain's uniform, he told me. But I told him that every clergyman, on joining the forces, they automatically are given the rank of captain. Anyway, he was 4/5 drunk, he said. But I replied that maybe the priest was a little excited, but he was certainly not drunk.
Sir Archibald Bodkin then cross-examined the witness.
I put it to you, my good lady. I put it to you, my good lady, that you called Lieutenant Chambers a dirty blackguard and a liar.
Those are not words that I would use to guests staying in our hotel.
Not only did you call him a blackguard and a liar, you also said he must not put foot inside your hotel again. Incredible.
I told him that he was no class, and if he had Father O'Donnell arrested, I would not give him a room in this hotel again.
Georgina Bennett's further evidence revealed that Lieutenant Chambers had paid for the room that was occupied by a Mr. Waddell, the commercial traveller from London, who was also a witness for the prosecution. Her evidence before the court-martial did much to secure the acquittal of Father O'Donnell. Early spring of 1920, Georgina Bennett emigrated to Canada, where she married a John Thomas Wilson. They first settled in Limerick, Saskatchewan, a township of 160 people. Wilson being of Protestant stock and she being a devout Roman Catholic, the marriage very soon began to get into difficulties. By 1923, the couple had divorced, whereupon she moved to Montreal and took up the position of head housekeeper at the Mount Royal Hotel. She died in 1951 and is buried in the cemetery in Montreal that is of the same name as the hotel where she worked. Charles Wilson, her brother-in-law, had this to say about her. Even though she was far away in Montreal, she clung to us as her only family. She had lost all her own family. The day of her funeral in Montreal Cathedral, I was the only kin that was present there. On the 15th of November 1920, they'd been now promoted to the rank of Captain Samuel Chambers, along with fellow officers Captain M.H. Green and Lieutenant W.S. Watts, are taken from a train at Waterfall Station outside Cork City. The three men are summarily executed as spies.
Thomas Bennett was an avid gardener, and he featured regularly as a prize winner at the horticultural shows with his vegetables and flowers. In 1911, he sued his neighbour Joe Lars for using his garden as a toilet and for using insulting language, namely calling him an old impostor and a pig driver, in reference to his former job as policeman. Lars was also alleged to have accused Bennett of running to the clergy with stories. Margaret Ann Bennett passed away at Thurles Infirmary on the 18th of August 1922. The 65-year-old Dublin native has suffered from vascular heart disease from the previous 2 years. Now, it is only a matter of conjecture to speculate how Thomas Bennett spent the final 14 months of his life. With 8 children dead and buried, his wife dead, and his sole surviving daughter far away in Canada, it is difficult to picture the ex-policeman as anything other than a sad and lonely figure. Heavy rains that fell between Christmas and the New Year of 1923 has swollen the waters of the River Suir and caused severe flooding along its banks. A brief report printed in the Nina News on the 19th of January 1924 stated, Mr. Thomas Bennett, an ex-RSC pensioner, has been missing from his home in Thurles for nearly a fortnight. It is feared he has been drowned in the shower. Matthew Collins of Stradivore found the body of the police pensioner on the banks of the River Suir at Ballycorran on the 1st of February 1924. A social history of his time, the product of post-famine Ireland, who found security in the police forces. The scourge of TB. Many families were totally annihilated by the disease. The British Army in World War I. The status of the family member in religious life. Sedition, the tool of oppression. The preordained doom of the mixed marriage. Emigration and return visit. Much against popular belief, a large percentage of people who emigrated did return to visit family and friends. The honest and accomplished woman from a humble background. In 1915, Timothy Egan, owner of the International Hotel, was to suffer a mental breakdown. In his absence, Georgina Bennett ran the hotel on behalf of Mr. Egan's children. She cleared a £7,000 debt, and within 5 years, the hotel was showing a healthy profit. And finally, the power of true love that transcends all generations. Georgina Bennett subtracted 5 years from her age, bringing her closer in years to the age of Canadian officer Major John Thomas Wilson. All things are fair in love and war. So remain seated where you are, and there's another bit of pageantry to be done, and we're going to tell another little interesting story through that. So